Okay, we are recording. So I really appreciate you all being here and taking the time at this lunch hour to continue our learning about difficult conversations and this approach called NVC, Nonviolent Communication. I wanted to start out today with just a review a little bit of what we did last week, and then we'll move ourselves forward. So one reminder is that the basis of nonviolent communication, NVC, is this idea of needs consciousness, that that all words and actions are attempts to meet needs, and that every human being at all times is a whole bundle of different feelings and needs, and that's just normal. That's what it means to be human. And when we have those different needs and emotions, that kind of drives what we do. That drives our words, our actions. There's these things underneath it, the feelings and needs. And so the way that we approach communication is to be kind of listening for those things. And there are three parts of communication, which we talked about last week. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see that. Hold on. Okay, so hopefully you can all see this now. Okay, so you can all see. Actually, I'm actually not going to do full screen, but hopefully a thumbs up if you can see the screen. We won't be on here that long. Okay, so there are three parts of communication, just to review. There is the listening part, which in NVC is called attuned listening. There is the attuned speaking, which is the part where, we're going to share our perspective, feelings, needs, etc. And then there's everything else underneath it, that kind of inner dialogue. Sometimes it's called mindful inner world. That is the third part of communication. So we are last week we spent time on the attuned listening piece, but as I said, the basis of this work is this needs consciousness, is recognizing feelings and needs. So we're going to practice that for just a second. So I want you to take a minute, and I asked if possible for you to have that list of feelings and needs available for yourself. If you have it printed, I would put it in front of you. If it's not printed, you can open it up on the screen. I think, Melissa, if you can put the links there. So there's a list of feelings and there's a list of needs. And so I want you to take a moment. We're going to start with feelings. So if you need to, sometimes it's helpful to even put a hand on your heart, or if you want to close your eyes, or you might need your eyes open if you're looking at the list. But what are you feeling right now? Be an emotion scientist. Try to figure out, what am I feeling in this very moment? Because you're feeling something, even if it's feeling calm. So take a moment and think to yourself, what am I feeling? Okay, and remember, we can be a bundle of feelings. It might not just be one thing. Now we're going to take a minute and think about what are the needs that are alive in you right now. So remember, we are all always, a bundle of different feelings and needs. And these needs, it's not like, I need ice cream or whatever, although food sustenance is a basic human need, but we all have these just very basic human needs. So that is that list. It's also in the chat box. Melissa posted it. So look through that list of needs and think, what's alive in you? What do you need right now? What are you longing for right now? Like, what are your unmet needs right now, or the needs that you're wishing you had? You might also be thinking about, what are the needs that are met right now? Like, there's certain needs that are, you're good to go on those needs. Like maybe your need for learning, your need for connection, your need for rest. I don't know, or maybe that's an unmet need for you. Okay, so we'll start there. Now I want to get back to the review in terms of the attuned listening. So last week we spent most of the time focused on that piece of the communication, is attuned listening. And in particular about listening for needs and feelings and trying to kind of break out of our habits, our patterns. So what I'm going to do in a moment is to break you into some breakout pairs to reflect on a couple of questions. First of all, what did you learn last week? And also, did you try it at all this past week? Since our class in the last week, did you try out attuned listening with anybody in your life? And if so, how did it go? And if you didn't, if it wasn't something you were thinking about, then it's fine. Just what did you learn last week? And if there's any of you that weren't with us at all last week, then hopefully your partner was, and they can share with you what they learned or what stands out from last week to them. So give me just a second so I can do these breakout rooms and make sure everybody is in the room. Okay, so here you go. We're gonna just do this for just a couple of minutes, about 3 minutes or so. Hold on one second. So we're gonna do this for a few minutes and then you will, we'll come back and move forward. So we're just gonna review, what did you learn last week and did you try it out at all in your life and how did it go? Here we go, see you soon. I'm gonna resume the recording. Okay, here comes everybody. Welcome back, the magic of Zoom, where you automatically zoom into the main room. So, hello, welcome back. And I see some other folks I didn't see before. Hello to Sandy and Jason and Leslie and I think, who else did I not catch? Blessing, hello. All right, good to see you all. So we're gonna move on. So in terms of the review of attuned listening, the pieces that I hope you'll sort of continue to take with you is around the breaking out of our habitual patterns of how we normally listen and respond, and that we are really trying to listen for the feelings and needs of the other person, and we might be kind of guessing at those. And also we, at the end of last week, talked about that one of the goals of NVC is to slow it down, is that instead of a ping pong match, which is what a lot of conversations are, that you want it to be more like a piano recital, which is that the spotlight is on one person, they're gonna kind of play their piece, and then when the time is right, you kind of, the other person plays their piece, and then eventually you can kind of move forward, figuring out what do we do, where do we go from here? But we have to slow it down and not have that back and forth. So today we are, I know some of you are probably very eager to move into the speaking part, because often the things that are challenging for us, it's like, I have something to say, you know, but we're actually saving that for next week. Today we're going to be focusing on the mindful inner world, the part that's underneath the conversation, because the truth is you can't really get to the speaking until you know what you're going to say, and that requires some of the mindful inner world work. So we're going to focus on that piece today. And I'll say that to me, this is really, really the crux of nonviolent communication, is this recognition that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on underneath the conversation that's even inside us. There's an inner dialogue that's happening. And if we can be mindful of that, that can really affect the outcome of the conversation. So I'm going to share a slide with you again. One second. Okay. Here it is. Okay, can you all see? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So here you see, so mindful inner world, this piece that's underneath the conversation is also sometimes called self-empathy. Remember that when we did attuned listening, we were trying to give, we also called it giving empathy. You're trying to understand and really kind of empathize with how the other person is feeling and what their needs are. Now is the time for self-empathy, to touch base with your own feelings and needs. As my teacher, Kathy Simon, says, that this work is about finding inner balance when you are thrown off, and finding ways to get back to balance so that you can act and speak from strength and empathy. Because sometimes, I mean, many times in difficult conversations, we're all riled up. There's a lot going on and it kind of throws us off balance. And so this is about centering and calming and kind of finding that balance. And this work, as it says on the slide, is largely about knowing and accepting yourself. And so I guess, you know, there's a question here about what is the difference, or not the difference, I'm sorry, what is the connection? I'm going to stop the sharing. What is the connection between staying centered and knowing yourself? So if you have thoughts about that, you can put it in the chat box. Unfortunately, I think there's too many of us to just speak in a discussion type of way. But what's that connection between staying centered and knowing yourself? If you have any thoughts, please share that, and then we'll move forward. Wait and see if anyone has any ideas they'd like to share. How does knowing yourself connect with the idea of staying centered?
Staying centered. Explain what staying centered is, please.
Staying centered. So I'm going to explain it more, but I'm asking for your thoughts before I explain it more. When we talk about being off balance and you need to regain your center, how is that related to knowing yourself? So I see staying centered, not getting swayed by emotions. That sometimes our emotions sort of toss us around, and knowing yourself is seeing those emotions. Denise said, knowing what sets off a strong reaction in yourself. Yeah, so recognizing, oh, wow, I'm like way off balance at this moment. That really, you know, sometimes somebody says something and you physically feel like you're off balance. And you can't really stay centered if you don't know yourself. When I feel centered, I know myself, I get clarity on my soul's needs. Staying centered is temporary. Knowing yourself is permanent. So knowing yourself is something that it takes time. It's sort of lifelong, but can be sustained. But we get off balance all the time. Sometimes we're feeling really centered and sometimes we get off balance. It would be difficult to be centered without knowing what you are, what you feel. That's from Lynn. Diana said, if you know and accept yourself as you are, you can be grounded and respond with less reactivity. Yes, so remember, we're getting away from the ping pong model. And part of the ping pong is like, I'm here, I'm there, I'm like throwing things, you know, it's throwing. But when you can center yourself, you can respond from a grounded place, and not just sort of react, not be reactive. As John said, being comfortable with personal deficits. David is talking about my whole body reacts to tense conversation, shoulders tense, and that tension requires me to react, fight or flight. If I know my body is reacting, I can take a deep breath. Yes, and Herb also added, if you unless you know yourself, you don't even know where the center is. You might not even recognize that you're so off balance. So those are all really great, very helpful comments. You can continue to add, but I'm gonna move forward. So I wanna get back to what David said, which is that when things happen or somebody says something or we're in a conversation, we have a reaction. That's normal. Reactions are natural, we react. And so the question is, you know, what do you do with that reaction? Now, sometimes the reaction is a physical one. David was saying his shoulders get tense. Sometimes we feel a pit in the stomach. There's a lot of different physical reactions that we have when we're in a hard situation or a difficult conversation. There are physical sensations that we feel. Sometimes we also have an immediate emotional reaction, like, you know, the sort of flying off the handle, like the rage or the anger or the, you know, sadness or whatever it is, or maybe even we're elated, it's something very exciting. But the emotional reaction also is normal and can happen. So the goal of this mindful inner world piece is not to not react. Reactions are normal, but we want to slow it down and try to notice our reaction because it gives us choice. It allows us to choose what we want to do next if we're more mindful of where we are and what our reaction is. Instead of just operating out of this, it's almost mindless. It's like, this is my reaction. It's immediate. We want to stop, pause, notice our reaction, and then be able to respond. So I have another slide that shows this in kind of a visual way. One second. So this is what can happen inside of us during a conversation. This is that inner dialogue. So can you all see the screen with this? Yes? Okay. So there's a stimulus. Something is said, something happens. There's a reaction. The goal is to notice your own reaction and to ask yourself these questions. What am I feeling? And what do I need right now? Now, what do I need is not, I need for the other person to understand me, or I need them to get it, right? This is, go back to the page of needs. That's why I said it was really helpful to print it out and have it in front of you. What do I need right now from this universal human needs? And so that's what you want to do, is be asking those questions. But also, this is about translating your reaction. So what does my reaction indicate? Like, I feel rage right now, you know, I need whatever I need. But then also I can choose where to focus my attention. So I'll give you an example. I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a minute. I come home, I don't know, from being somewhere outside or something, and like everything's a mess. The kitchen counter is super dirty. It's a mess. And my, beloved son is there. He looks really tired. And, I don't know, maybe my husband's there. He looks tired. So in that moment, I might be feeling all sorts of things, right? I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, I have a need for some order. I have need for calm. I have need for feeling a sense of peacefulness, and my house looks like it's, you know, a tornado. So my need for calm and equanimity is being confronted by the, you know, the chaos. So but I can choose what I want to sort of notice in that moment. Do I want to focus my attention on the dirty kitchen counter? Do I want to notice the sadness that I see on my son's face? Do I want to notice the exhaustion that I see in my husband's face? Like, where do I want to focus my attention? And getting in touch with, what do I need right now and what am I feeling? But rather than just coming home and like flying off the handle because I'm so angry that the house is a mess, I have to give myself that moment to pause, say to myself, okay, what am I feeling? What do I need? And this is the last part that was on that slide. I'll put it back up just because this is an important part too. And this is all part of Mindful Inner World because it's inside my head. What can I guess about what the other person is feeling? And what do they need? Now, this isn't even attuned listening. They haven't even said anything, right? I just walked into the house. But still, some conversation is about to ensue. And I can guess at their feelings and needs also. And sometimes it's a guess and sometimes it's wrong. But I can at least have that brief, you know, this doesn't need to be 5 minutes. It might be 3 seconds or 10 seconds. But that brief moment of, I'm going to take a deep breath. What am I feeling? What am I needing? And what can I guess that this other person is feeling and needing in this moment? So this is really the fundamental inquiry of NVC, is the feelings and needs kind of investigation. And by doing it, even just by taking that moment to think it through and to try to guess at feelings and needs, that is calming. It's calming for me. And even guessing at their feelings and needs is also calming for me. It's better for me to take that moment to guess about their feelings and needs. Because again, it's sort of that giving empathy. I recognize that I'm pissed and frustrated and whatever about the dirty house, and that's not what I need right now. But I can recognize, oh gosh, there are some feelings and needs that other people have in this moment too. Now again, this doesn't mean that I'm just a doormat and my feelings and needs don't matter. Everybody's feelings and needs matter. That's the basis of NVC. But everybody's needs and feelings matter, includes me, and it includes the others. So taking that moment to really notice and try to think about it can get me to a more centered place. It's calming. And it also allows me to be more compassionate in my response. So the reason this is called NVC, nonviolent communication, is because it's communication that comes from a place of compassion. Compassion for self and compassion for others. And if we can, as much as possible, stay in a place of compassion for self and compassion for others, the communication can be more relational. So we are going to, hold on one second. I have one more slide before we're going to start doing some practicing. So last week we talked about habits that we have with listening, attuned listening. What are some of those habits? And habits aren't necessarily a bad thing. It's just that they're habits. We do them automatically, and we have to notice them so we can decide to opt out of those habits if we want to. So I see Erin is recalling a 5-second rule from Mel Robbins. Counting backwards from 5 when you feel a reaction allows you to reset your brain to decide how to react. So I think that tool of counting backwards from 5 could be aligned with this, which is to say, take 5 seconds or whatever it is, but to get really clear on what are my needs and feelings and what do I guess are the needs and feelings of the others in this, or the other person in this. So, so last week, back to the attuned listening and this idea that we have habits, there are also habits that are in our own mindful, inner world, our dialogue. And so we have to be aware of what our inner dialogue habits are and to recognize them. So I want to share my screen again to show you what are some of the habits that we have. Can you all see it now? Thumbs up. Okay. So when things are difficult, our main habits in our inner dialogue are self-judgment and judgment toward the other. So one of the things that we can practice working on if we're trying to create this mindful inner world is to translate those tapes, to change them so that instead of having that self-judgment and judgment toward the other, we can change it to these questions of what do I feel, what do I need, and what do I guess that the other person is feeling and needing? So I'll share, like right now, my son just came in here in the middle of a class that I'm trying to teach. I'm feeling a lot of feelings right now. I'm feeling super annoyed. I need space. I need calm. I need to feel competent in my job, right? All sorts of things. I have a lot of feelings and needs. He clearly has a need for connection right now, right? So I can have some compassion for that while still saying, I need my space. So, but I can respond in a more compassionate way than just flying off the handle because he won't give me space. Ellen is asking, what if the compassion is never reciprocated? So NVC obviously is ideal. If everyone in the world communicated like this, we would be in an amazing situation. But unfortunately, we can't control other people. And we also can't force other people to take NVC classes. But we do have control over ourselves. So as best as possible, we can have compassion for ourselves and compassion for others. And so, you know, if the compassion's never reciprocated, we might choose that that's not a relationship we want to continue, for example. That's our choice. We have choices in every situation, but we can choose how we want to communicate about things. So I'm going to pause for just a moment. Okay. So, so hopefully you had at least a little bit of chance to reflect, what are my mental habits? Where do I go in terms of judgment? And how can I change the tape? The goal is to change the tape. We're so used to the same mental loop that we have to try to change it in order to change the outcome of our conversations. And getting to that question of feelings and needs is how we get there. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna practice. We're going to practice being aware of ourselves. This is around self-awareness practice, but we're gonna do it with another person. So what we're going to do is, I am going to give you a prompt, something like a sentence that somebody is saying to you. And then I'm going to split you into breakout groups, breakout pairs, just 2 of you. And you're each going to practice to do the following things. So after you hear this prompt, you're going to put your hand on your heart and you're going to say to yourself, well, actually, you're going to say it out loud to your partner, but this is what normally would be silent inside your head. But we're going to practice it out loud just to practice. Because often there's all kinds of things going through our head. I'm going to give my son as the example. What's going through my head? Oh my gosh, why is he in here? Why can't he leave me alone for 5 seconds? I'm trying to teach a class. What happened to the babysitter? You know, there's like a million things going on in my head, right? So the goal is to say, okay, that's my normal mental tape. And it's okay, it's normal to have, that's my reaction. So I go from the reaction, put my hand on my heart, and then this is what we're gonna do. Put your hand on your heart and you're gonna say, when I hear that, now in this case it's, you know, when he entered the room, but we'll give this prompt example. When I hear that, I feel, or pick one feeling. One of my feelings is, and it has to be a feeling word. It can't be one of the things I feel is that this person's an idiot. That doesn't count. It's one, I feel something and pick from the list of feelings. And something I'm longing for is blank, and that's from the needs list. So one thing I'm feeling is such and such, and one thing I'm longing for is such and such. Then you're gonna take a few breaths, take 3 deep breaths. Do 3 of them, and then you're going to say out loud, another thing I'm feeling is something. I am also longing for something, because remember, we're all a bundle of a bunch of different feelings. It's not just one thing. So after that second, I'm also longing for, you're again gonna take a few deep breaths. And then you're gonna say, when I hear you say that, now I know your partner didn't actually say it. I'm the one who's gonna give you the prompt. But anyway, when I hear you say that, I'm guessing you feel, now you have to guess at what the person who said this prompt is feeling. And you might be longing for blah, 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 whatever it is that you're longing for. Or you guess that the other person is needing in that moment. So again, from that needs list, what do you think the other person is longing for? So it's all, Melissa put it up on the chat. It will be up in the chat. You can look at it during the breakout room. So the hand on your heart in real life, you don't have to do, but in this moment, it's just a way to kind of connect you. What is sort of inside me at this moment? And again, you're gonna say it all out loud. So one person in the pair is gonna do that, and then you'll pause and you'll switch. And even though the prompt is the same for both of you, my guess is what feelings and needs it raises for you are gonna be different. What feelings and needs it raises for you might be positive, they might be negative, it doesn't matter. The point is you're feeling something and you have certain needs that are alive based on hearing this statement. Okay, does everyone understand what we're gonna do? Okay, so I'm going to put you into a breakout pair. We're going to do this for about 5 minutes. So each person just, do this. It takes maybe 2 minutes or so. The next person's going to do it. And then you can have a minute or two to debrief. So I'll give you 6 minutes. So 2 minutes for each of you to do the thing and a couple minutes to just debrief. What was it like? Was it hard for you to identify feelings and needs or to guess at the feelings and needs of the other person? How was it hearing the other person? Remember that you're just practicing mindful inner world. The other person is not your conversation partner here. They're just there to listen and, reflect with you. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna give you an example really quick. So the example that I'm gonna give you is, the prompt is that somebody says to me, you shouldn't have done that. So I'm gonna put my hand on my heart. I feel ashamed. I want to be seen as competent and effective. I'm also feeling puzzled. What did I do wrong? How did I screw it up so badly? I'm longing for clarity, and I'm longing for harmony. I'm guessing that the other person is feeling frustrated. And I'm guessing that they have a need for predictability. So that's now what that was, who knows, right? But somebody just, you shouldn't have done that. So I'm just guessing, like they were frustrated with me. They needed some predictability and I didn't, do what they thought I was going to do. So that was my sort of sample of what you're going to do. Does everyone get it? Thumbs up what we're doing? Okay. So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. And then once you're in the breakout room, I'm going to send you the prompt. There's a way that I send you a message so you can look and see what the prompt is. And then you'll each take your time to do the response. I'm going to recreate the room so you can be with different folks. Hold on. And I'm also going to change the time for 6 minutes. Oopsies. Okay, everybody ready? And here we go. Oh, oopsies. Okay, well, I think folks are returning. All right, welcome back. So how was it? Thumbs up, thumbs down, so-so, thumbs up. This is hard. I was in a room with a couple of folks and it's very hard to stick with feelings and needs
Mm.
because often it's like, well, because I think they're so-and-so, or I think this is what they think, or, you know, but we're in the thinking realm. Get to the feeling. What are you feeling and what are you needing in this moment? And even, you know, somebody was saying, because I need a return to normalcy, or I'm longing for a return to normalcy. Even that phrase, return to normalcy, I would argue in this case is not exactly sort of NVC language, in the sense that, oh, you couldn't see the scenario long enough to know what it was. I'm sorry, I will put it in the chat before and also during. But remember that the needs are things like, you know, maybe we have a need for consistency, we have a need for stability, we have a need for predictability, we have a need for connection, we have a need for closeness, we have a need for, you know, look at that needs list. If you don't have it in front of you, pull it up on your screen. We shared the links to it, so it can be up on your screen. Sometimes we just don't have the vocabulary. So the more that we get comfortable with these words, we can see that, you know, these are universal needs. We have a need for self-care. We have a need for calmness, you know, tranquility, lots of different kinds of needs. So eventually, I promise you next week, we're going to get to the speaking part. Like, what do you say? How do you sort of speak from this empowered place? But we have to start with, where am I coming from? What are the needs and feelings that are deep in me, that are alive in this situation? Because it will make the communication better. It will make it more connected, more compassionate, and frankly, more effective also. Okay, so we're going to try this again. I am going to share the second prompt. I'll put it in the chat box. I'll also share it with you. I'm doing this intentionally because I know that this is a complicated one, and what I don't want you to do is to start talking about the issue. What I want you to do is to focus on feelings and needs. What are your feelings and reactions, and what are you guessing at the feelings and needs of the person who's saying this? You don't know who's saying this and where they're coming from, so you got to guess. Okay, so here is another one. Okay, so I heard there's going to be a huge Black Lives Matter rally in Lafayette this weekend. That's your prompt. You're going to be in some breakout rooms. I'm going to recreate them so you'll be with somebody different. Let me just make sure that we have enough room, so that there's about 2 people per room. You might have 3 people, but 2 or 3. Okay, so here we go. And again, we'll do 5 or 6 minutes. I will see you soon. Hello?
Hello,
Who is that on the phone?
this is Ziva.
Hi, Ziva. I'm so glad that you were able to join that way. Everybody is coming back now.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I don't know
Oh,
where I'm
it's okay. No problem. It happens.
frustrating. I still don't know what. Okay, now I came to Nadav and I told him that what's happening.
Okay.
And I was.
I had stopped recording. Okay. Back to recording. All of these thoughts and emotions are all jumbled, and I feel all these things and I have all these reactions, but how do we take that moment to just pause and say, okay, what is going on for me right now? What are my feelings? What do I need? And what do I think maybe the other person is feeling and needing? Those are the key questions that need to be asked. So I have a couple of last things that I want to share. So I wanted to ask you, actually, in doing this, I know there's a few questions here about, is this going to be recorded? Yes, it's recorded. I'll share it with all of you. You're welcome to share it with a spouse. You'll have the link. Right now, we are not planning to put it up on YouTube, but maybe we will eventually. So I will tell you the third prompt before we get off. But what I wanted to ask you was, what did you notice? And what surprised you when you were practicing this mindful inner world piece? Put it in the chat box of what did you notice or what surprised you? I'll wait a minute while you have a chance to type something in if there was something you noticed. Okay. I'm gonna wait and see if you put anything in the chat. Turbulence, mixed feelings. It was too short. Surprised by how confused and out in left field I felt. Hard to do when you can't see all the resources at once. Yeah, I get that that is hard. Difficult to frame it with, hard to stick with feelings. I feel a lot of, several of the comments are about how hard it is to just stick with feelings. Difficult to guess the other person's feelings. Reactions can be totally unrelated. You could be excited about something, you could be afraid of something. There can be a lot of nuances in the same moment. It was hard to follow exactly what we needed to do. I take ownership for that. I'm sorry for the ways that this was hard for some of you to do. Hard to stop and identify my emotions. I have a habit of skipping that, going straight to fixing it. Not knowing who is making the statement made it difficult to determine their needs and feelings. Yes, this was obviously like a random statement out of nowhere, so you don't know where they're coming from. You also didn't hear tone of voice, right? If somebody says, there's going to be a huge Black Lives Matter rally this weekend, right? That's different than there's going to be a huge Black Lives Matter rally this weekend, right? Like the tone of voice obviously could matter. So it is hard. This is hard in a very kind of disconnected way. But for some of you, thoughts were deeper, more meaningful. Feelings and needs were very similar to the other person. Maybe that was a coincidence. The need for better vocabulary. It's easy to get off on the issues rather than stick with feelings and slowing myself down. So I picked things that are intentionally a little bit lively to talk about because I wanted you to try to not talk about it. Now, it doesn't mean that in a real conversation, you're going to not talk about it. At some point, you are going to talk about what you think about something. But the goal here was to recognize how quickly we jump to ping pong, to just reacting and talking and not, oh gosh, what's alive in me right now? What am I feeling? What do I need? And what is the other person feeling and needing? And again, getting it to that recital place. If we were in the attuned listening, you might have asked some questions. Oh gosh, I'm curious, like, what do you think about that? Whatever it is, that this rally is going to happen or that you're having a barbecue. Tell me more about that. Why is that important to you? I'm curious, but like sticking just with them, their feelings and needs. Here we were trying to identify our own feelings and needs. Joni was saying the spicy topics are where I get in trouble. I think the spicy topics are where we all get in trouble. It's really easy to do this work about something that doesn't provoke anything inside of us. But if it provokes something for us, it's really, really, really hard. So that's why we were trying this with some topics that are a little bit, spicier. So the third one I was going to say was that somebody says to you, so Biden picked Kamala Harris yesterday. ... Okay, now what, right? What are your feelings? What are your needs? There might be 12 different feelings that sentence evokes for you. Now, again, you don't know who's saying it. You don't know anything about who they are and their background, so it might be very difficult to guess their feelings and needs. But you could imagine if somebody said that to you, someone in your family, a friend, you might guess it, knowing who they are, what are some of the feelings and needs behind their commenting on that, right? So there are so many things that can get that rise out of us, and that part of the work of NVC is to give yourself time to figure out what's going on inside of you. You have that mental tape of whatever it is, but we can translate it. We can translate the, gosh, I'm so annoyed. Why is my kid in here? He's not supposed to be in here. What's he doing? Blah, blah, blah. Translate it into needs and feelings in order to get to part 3, which we're going to get to next week, which is the empowered speaking. But if you haven't done the work of the mindful inner world, you're not going to be able to do empowered speaking. You have to do this work first. So what I would encourage you for this week is to, again, try this when you're in conversations with people, or you're going to be having a tough conversation. You can even do it beforehand, even not during the conversation. This is the pre-work. What am I feeling about this thing, this topic, this conversation I'm going to have? What are my needs? Now, again, needs are not opinions. Needs are human needs. Go to the needs list that I've given you several times and try to identify what are the needs that are really present for you in this, and guess at what their feelings and needs are. And also in conversations, just to get back to where we started today, the goal is to stay centered, because when we're off balance, it's very hard to have a compassionate, connected conversation. But if we can be centered, we can have better communication. And to get to that place of centering, we have to slow it down. Sometimes you can even say, if somebody says something, you know what, I just need a minute. I need a minute to think for a second. Give yourself 10 seconds, 30 seconds. Nobody says you have to reply right away. We get in the habit of going so fast and talking over each other that nobody has a minute to even pause. I need to think for a second. I need to really process what you just said. Like, ask for the time if you need the time. Now, again, in conversations, if you start with attuned listening, the first statement isn't going to jump into all this stuff we did today. Hopefully you have already really listened to them. You've guessed at their needs and feelings. You're really trying to unpack where they are. Then we're going to get into your part. But while you're doing the attuned listening, there is this mindful inner world going on underneath it. And it's a very helpful way to facilitate the conversation. So I will definitely share today's slides and the recording. In fact, I'm going to stop the recording now.